Snazzify your content with the Layout Builder. My name is Justin Langley. I'm one of the senior developers of all the things at CodeQualis. I'm a huge nerd. I love to learn, I like to learn new things. I'm a big fan of flashy things. When it comes to web development, I have a knack for finding things that just look really cool. So I'm also a huge D&D nerd fan, so if you like... Yeah! So if you're a fan or an aspiring fan, feel free to speak to me as I can talk about it for probably a day straight. So, I'm going to talk about what Layout Builder is, show what it does, hopefully melt some brains, profit, I guess. So, has anybody here used any kind of visual page builder tool before, either WordPress or anything like that? Anybody used any of those kinds of tools before? Cool. So there's a lot out there. Just a small list that I have. There's the Gutenberg Editor for WordPress. There's what's called the Beaver Builder, which is also a page editor tool, mostly for WordPress. There's one called Elementor that actually works with several CMSs. There's the Stacks project on Drupal, which I think at one of the camps last year, Carl Kudrowski did a talk and kind of went over bricks and stacks. They're very similar. And then there's, I'm just going to stop there. There's a lot. The problem run into a lot of Drupal is that there are modules for some of these sort of page building tools, but none of them really fully integrate with Drupal. They have limited support for some of Drupal's internals. Some don't use the field API. Some don't use the entity API at all, which makes them not revisionable. And so there's varying levels of how well do they work within Drupal. Are they just their own little drop-in thing that they do their own things with? And then if you want to, index the content and search on terms, you're going to run into issues there if it's not integrated with Drupal. So the biggest problem Drupal's had since like 6 or 7 is that all these sort of visual page building tools have come out for all the other CMSs. And Drupal hasn't had one to sort of combat with it. So we had a problem. Content editors did not have a inviting or welcoming experience using Drupal's admin. It was in 7, to be fair, in 7 and 8 they did update the 7th theme and it does look better, but there was no, hey, here's a tool for you to use to make your live creating content super easy, very simple, you can just jump in and start it right away. There wasn't a lot of that in Drupal since then. So there's almost too many choices before, like if you were using WordPress or like Joomla or something, there were a lot of different options, which there is some good there. Like, hey, there's different choices, different options. People do things differently. You get a little more insight on what works and what doesn't work. Part of the problem we kind of ran into was everybody had kind of used their own, like, oh, well, I've used Wix before. I've used Square. They're all different. But I think what places like Wix and Square have done well is that they use the same one. So people get used to the interface. They can learn it a little quicker. It doesn't change on them that often. So for Drupal 8, something better was needed. We needed something that was tailored for content editors. As anybody here has probably experienced in building sites, is that the developers are not the ones messing with the Drupal site day in, day out in the interface and making content. It's generally not what the developers do. So having that experience not be awesome pulled people away from Drupal. A lot of agencies wouldn't use it because, hey, I could go use WordPress and get this really nice, really easy to use interface for my content editors, and those are the people that I want to keep happy because they'll keep working with us and building new things. So we needed a hero. We needed a hero to step in for Drupal 8 and to provide that kind of experience for Drupal 8. Because Drupal 8 is awesome. It is a fantastic tool. It can be used for small sites, for large sites, and all you have to do is go to a couple of camps and you realize there are so many things that Drupal can do, from ambitious digital experiences down to a hobbyist who just kind of wants to play around and build like a blog site. So, entering in Layout Builder. So this was the hero we've kind of all been waiting for Drupal 8, a really integrated, easy to use, drop-in solution for content editors to build content in a visual way that kind of makes it a little bit more enjoyable. So internally, Layout Builder uses everything Drupal. There's no additional third-party dependencies. There's no JavaScript libraries you have to add. It's just Drupal. So it started shipping in 8.5 as a very, very early experimental module. And then in 8.7, it was stable. So it is now, comes in Drupal core 8.7, stable module, works with revisions, and it uses layouts and blocks. So has anybody here used layouts in Drupal 8 before? Instead of like manage display or display suite, has anybody used layouts with the layout discovery? Yay, one person, awesome. Layouts are great. So layouts in Drupal are just a configuration entity that you can tie to either a class or a template. So you can define these sort of reusable, literal layouts, or you can define regions in those layouts, and then you can put content in those regions. So it was sort of a Drupal internal successor to display suite. So instead of needing to display suite with field groups to group fields and do fancy things like that, you could instead define a layout with regions, and then there was a module within Drupal core that let you use those layouts in your managed display. So instead of needing an extra module, you just add your layouts. It's all Drupal internals. You don't need any third-party additional items. So picture worth 1,000 words. That's not the right GIF of the UI. Sorry. There. Nope. Sorry. That's also not the right GIF. There we go. So this is actually the Layout Builder UI in action. It looks like the others. You have blocks and layouts where you can drag and drop stuff around, and this is what the page looks like. So you're getting your front-end theme styles as you're building your page, which is one of those big differences for content editors, is they can see what they're doing as they're doing it, instead of filling out this arbitrary white page form with 40 fields on it where they don't know what the data they're inputting is going to look like. Instead, they get what feels like instant feedback. So I'm actually going to run through a couple of different variations of Layout Builder and show off what it does. So I feel like GIFs are good, watching it work is kind of cooler. So hopefully at the end of this is kind of going to be what your face is going to do. So I have set up a standard Drupal 8 site. All I've done is install the standard profile. I've done nothing else to it. So we're going to go to our structure. Content types. I have enabled Layout Builder, so I have done one thing. It just comes with Drupal core. Oh, actually no, so earlier today, I had prepared this way in advance, and as per the usual curse of the camp, all of my presentations, all my sites completely crashed, everything broke, docs still stopped working, so I had to restart. So I built everything fresh today. So here we'll have Layout Builder, and it requires the Layout Discovery module, which is how you register layouts. So those two modules we simply install. Great. Now for any content type in use Layout Builder, in the Manage Display, you will have a new checkbox on here to use Layout Builder. And it has an additional option where A, you can use Layout Builder to decide the layout for all of the pieces of content of a particular type, or you can allow each item itself to be customized, which we'll do for this example. So I'll save those two items. Awesome. So now you'll notice the fields are no longer displayed here because you're no longer using Drupal's Manage Display UI. Instead, you manage the layout. Drupal core comes with some built-in layouts to get you started. So this is the interface of Layout Builder. There are a couple of items at the top here. You have a Show Content Preview. Any field that's defined in Drupal can also define a Generate Sample function. So you can generate sample content. So this is what the Layout Builder GUI is using. So on an article, there is an image field. So it puts a placeholder image here, show you where it shows up, a body description, which is Lorem Ipsum, an example of the tags, and then if you don't provide that, it simply drops in this placeholder here. Now, there's this little checkbox you can use to drop that off, and instead you just get a very plain like, hey, here's where you've placed your fields. So what this actually is this is simply a section which uses a layout. And how layouts are defined is they look a little bit like this. Standard. Standard. It's going to be in. So here you can have a layouts YAML file for any module or your theme where you want to define these layouts. And it's simple YAML. You define a key, which is going to be the name, the machine name of the layout, and then some default options of the label, the path to the twig template you want to use for this layout, the path to it, and then the actual template name itself without the .twig.html appended to the end of it. And then here in the regions, this is where you define like, hey, here are the mappable regions for this layout where I can put stuff in. What that looks like is there's this layout 1 column, and it's just a twig file. And right here, it's simply printing out the content field, which is what we define on the layout. For example, the 2 column has a top, first, second, and bottom. And here we can see in the twig template, it prints the top, the first, second, and the bottom. So that's layouts, really in a nutshell. Very simple. You have a YAML file that defines where those layouts live, and then you define what regions exist on those layouts. So back at our layout builder here, if we add a new section, you can choose what layout you want to use. And you can either use there is a icon map value on these. That was a really cool extra thing while layout builder was being built that somebody contributed while working on it to add this little automatic SVG generator. So it just uses the simple syntax to generate essentially an icon for the layout. You can use a path to an image if you'd rather. So this is where you can decide like, hey, I'm gonna add a new section. I'm going to drop in a 2 column. It's got different options defined on the layout. I can show you what that looks like too. We're going to say it's a 50-50. We'll add the section, and now we have our twig layout template being rendered here, and both of the defined content regions are now available to drop blocks in. So it all works with layouts and blocks. Is how Layout Builder works. It's all internal Drupal stuff, so you can define your own custom block types and drop them in. Or you can even drop in the fields as a block. So if I wanted to drop the title in on this side, you get all of the default manage display formatter options will show up here, so you still have all that control of how you want your fields to render in here without needing to do additional. It's not that it takes all that control out of manage display, it goes into a different place. So we're going to visually hide the label, not going to link content, add the block here. Since I'm not displaying content preview, if I enable that, it puts in a default generated title here. So this is a very bare bones. You install Drupal, you enable Layout Builder. This is kind of what you get. So it doesn't automatically add styles for you or make things look fantastic. It just provides all of that control out of the box. So all you have to do from here is make block types, add fields, actually drop in a theme to theme things. So I'm going to show something that looks a little cooler. Has anybody used the Umami profile before? Awesome. One of the coolest things I think has happened in the past few months has been this default Umami profile, because I've actually used it to show off Drupal to several people before. Because it's hard when you're trying to get somebody on the Drupal train when you don't have something quickly out of the box you can show, and Umami is just like a great showcase. So this is just a default profile you can install. It sets up content, it's got its own theme, and it's basically a recipe site. What they recently did was they moved all the recipes to use Layout Builder. So this was me, I installed Drupal, I selected Umami profile, and that's all I've done so far. So if we go to our recipes, which is a view, we're going to go view a recipe here. And you'll always get this layout tab. If you've enabled each content item to be customized, you'll get this layout sort of local task here that shows up. So see if we click layout, it's already been set up for all the recipes. This one itself, it simply drops in a single 1 column and has dropped in all the fields on top of each other. So this is where it just shows where the fields are. If I want to show the content preview, you can now see all these items here. So now let's say, okay, cool. We have our recipes page that looks like this. And let's say I want to shift up some of these items, like the preparation time, cooking time. I don't need the image to be that big. I kind of want to just use this space over here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to add a 2-column section here at the top. We're going to do 50-50. And then when you're dragging and dropping blocks and fields around, it's sometimes a little bit easier if you disable the content preview, because it's easier to drag stuff without these small items. So now what I'm kind of wanting to do is I kind of want this image field, I kind of want it up over here on this side. But I'm going to change the category. We're going to put it over here. Let's put the preparation times. Oh, it got a little behind. My look was a little slow. The only thing is default of Umami. Layout Builder could use some extra help with the default styles out of the box, such as the Ajax spinner kind of gets lost in this and you can't really see it. So adding that in, I've done that myself on another site. So a little bit of styling you can probably do on top of it, sort of make it a little nicer, but out of the box, it still kind of just works and looks decent enough to just start working with. So we're going to move preparation time over here. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to turn the content preview back on, and now we're like, hey, now we can have our category preparation tags on our image over here on the left. We'll go ahead and save that layout. Awesome. So now we're going to go here, we're going to do a refresh. Oh, I know what I didn't do. Let's have to rebuild this all today. For some reason, the default layouts are using flex, but they don't. They make things wrap instead of making them sit side by side on the layouts. So I just had to do a little bit of front-end tweaking with the theme. So I've got a little customized Umami theme that I'm using for this. So I'm just going to enable that real quick. Refresh the page here. Awesome. Hey, JavaScript seems like. Oh.
How come the columns are not 50-50?
Yes, I'm actually thinking that when I did that, I noticed JavaScript is being very angry and making things a little upset, so I'm going to go clear the cache real quick. So I had to finagle with a couple of things with the front-end theme for Umami. A couple of small issues I ran into. There we go. Let's turn that off. I'm just going to need that for this. Caches real quick. The life of a Drupal developer. Clear the cache. Just gotta wait.
So those columns that come, are those just default for the layout builder?
Yes, all of those layouts are default with the layout discovery module. So enable it, it just adds those 4 default layouts for you to use. So hopefully here, this will make things a little happier. Yeah, so it's still making them not sit 50-50, but at least it looks like things are a little bit happier here. What we can see here, though, it is dropping in this 2-column section. I do have them set to 0, 1, 50, so that's interesting. It's probably just a flex thing I'm running into. So they are set to flex 0 and 50%. Not sure why they are. It might be the image is too big or something. But now, like what we moved around is we just added this new layout that's using our actual twig layout we defined, and here's the 2 regions being printed, and inside are blocks being rendered. Because in Layout Builder, everything's a block. So when you drop in a field, Layout Builder provides a new block type internally that lets you render a field in the context of an entity. So when you're in the Layout Builder and you're dropping in your fields, you're technically dropping in a block, but that block will render just that one field you told it to. So that's, in a nutshell, Layout Builder. Works right out of the box. Whatever theme you're using, if you're currently using like paragraphs, the one thing you would have to do, which I had to do for when we started using this on another site, was I had to sort of recreate my paragraphs as blocks. But there's also not stopping anybody from actually creating a new plugin to render paragraphs in addition to blocks. So under the hood, how Layout Builder kind of works in a nutshell is there's a new field type added that is a type called a layout section. So I'm going to show you what it looks like here. You'll see that you can't actually currently mess with the settings on it because it's a very specific storage plugin. So there's a new type of field called a layout section. So it's really just, it's your default Drupal field. Like if you were to find a new field tab for a plugin, it's a new tab called layout section. And its role is to keep track of what layout sections have been added, which are just configurations that define, hey, here's this layout that I'm using, and then also the renderable items that should go in that layout. So there's what's called a section component type that Layout Builder provides out of the box, and it's what actually wraps something that's renderable. And currently Drupal out of the box provides a plugin between those that lets you drop in blocks. So there's nothing stopping anybody from making a new plugin type that actually a section component can reference that will let you wrap a paragraph, or let you wrap a field collection, or wrap a user, or just out of the box they decided, hey, it's easy if you just have layouts and blocks, because with your own custom block types you can add whatever field you want. So I do have another something, the little show that I've started to think about is, so far we've seen like, hey, you can either not use Layout Builder, you can use Layout Builder, and they can build the entire page. But since it's just a field, you can do like a hybrid approach. So what I've done here on this other fresh site that I spun up, I'm using a theme called UIKit. You can find it on Drupal in the project listing. It's a really nice drop-in demo. It makes things just kind of lay out and look nice. Like this was me, haven't touched a single style on it. Provides some neat little nifty styling out of the box. So what I've done is I've made a content type called partial control. Oops. One way. Man, look at me, I am nailing this. Fields, there we go. So I've added a author, an image field, a tags field, and then I've enabled Layout Builder with it. So see here, and I've set it up to where let each one be customized. What I've done, however, if you go to Manage Layout, I am not rendering through Layout Builder the header image. I'm doing that in the template. So over here, I have a custom, I've moved the theme, added my own, and I simply added a template for that content type, and I'm simply rendering the header image itself, and then I'm rendering the rest of whatever's in content without the header image. So you can actually do a little bit of this kind of hybrid approach where, like, hey, you can say pieces of content, you have to fill in the form, you've got to fill out a header image, and it's always going to show up at the top of the page, and then you can let them mess with whatever else in the center here. So you can provide like an event content type where they have to fill out a heading, the event date, the field information, and maybe some footer spot, but then maybe you give them that center section where they could drop in like a little campaign banner, or maybe a coupon to like, hey, if you bring this in, we'll give you 10% off the entry fee, or so you can give your content editors this like mixture of control of maybe you don't want them to control everything, but maybe they do special campaigns, or you're like, hey, you could drop in a video right here instead of forcing them to learn CK editors, sometimes cumbersome interface for doing what you see is what you get. You can instead internally define, hey, these fields are required, these ones go up here, these show up down here, but this sort of middle area, that's your playground. You can kind of drop in whatever you want, but you still define the layouts and the styles so they have control. You can generally keep them from doing very terrible things that don't look right, because while they're building the page, they can see what the page looks like while they're building it. So you drop in an image and you, nope, that image isn't going to work, that's way too wide. So that's kind of been our big takeaway from using this with a couple of current sites is it's amazing the quality and level of content you get from people when they can actually see what they're doing as they do it. It's definitely been a huge improvement where we don't actually get a lot of that, hey, I filled out this page and this doesn't look right, I don't understand. Like, the amount of that we get from clients from these two sites we've been using this has just like absolutely plummeted. And then the upside is they've done some really cool things. We're like, hey, here's some neat layouts, here's some blocks, and then they'll like compose them together in a way that's, you're like, that's like super cool. It's not how I built it, but that's really neat. And it helps you as a developer when you're building things. There's actually, we found we have a little extra time to do the really cool things. It's like, hey, if somebody wants this really fancy landing page, usually you're building paragraphs, and the paragraphs have their own fields. But then, like, if you want to use paragraphs for layout, you have to make either separate paragraph types, which have fields that reference other paragraphs, and then you have to, like, very specifically say, hey, this paragraph only can use these paragraphs, and then you have this listing of paragraphs that kind of make sense to you, but to an end user, they're like, why can't I just drop this thing over here? So that's the one thing that isn't in the layout builder currently, is you can't really restrict what blocks people can drop into regions. It's not hard to do. It's all controllers and all Drupal, so overriding things is super easy. There are a couple of neat modules for layout builder currently. There's one that lets you restrict what layouts and what blocks are allowed to use at the content type level. So you could, it's called layout builder restrictions, and when adding it, you get an additional couple of fields on manage display that let you set, hey, only you can use these layouts, or you can use only these blocks. So you could, in theory, have multiple content types with varying levels of control, and you could say, hey, your big content editors can create the full landing pages, which they have everything. And then you can give the, whatever lower role that would be a content creator, like, hey, they get like you can use these very standard layouts of like the 1, 2, or 3 columns, and then they can use media and WYSIWYG and nothing completely crazy. That's kind of layout builder in a nutshell, is that you kind of drop it in and you're just like, it just works. You don't have to do anything else. There's no JavaScript dependencies. You don't have to, add all these models that do these crazy things that then you're like, oh, but then if I want to add revisioning to it, you're like, well, good luck with that. Like, it's all revisionable. If you set the block types to be revisionable, if you create a new layout, it creates a new revision of the page and blocks you're referencing. So everything is completely revertible. You can just say, didn't like that. After save, you could revert your node back, and it'll go back to the layout you had previously had on saved. So there's some cool stuff it does. The only thing that currently they had to pull out in 8.7 is they had to wait on translations. It's a little bit more complicated to get that working really well with layout builders. Right now it doesn't support translations, but there is a module called Layout Builder Asymmetric Layouts, and it does kind of add that functionality in, but it's a limited concept of like, hey, there are certain languages that read obviously right to left, and that's really hard with Layout Builder, because you're like, well, you have to either flip them, or with this module lets you set a translation for that layout, but it lets you rearrange where stuff is. It doesn't necessarily use a new version of the block, or let you use a translated version of the block. It lets you move things around in a different way. So there is a lot of work being done on it. So anybody here that thought that was really cool, or at least half as cool as I thought it was, really get involved in the initiatives running on Drupal 8 right now. There's a couple on media and the layout builder, and I think those are going to be the two big pieces that are going to start to pull people away from other CMSs and back into Drupal when they realize like there is a really good digital editor experience now happening in Drupal 8. So that's about all I have there. So, are there any questions? Yes.
So, on your local is a little bit slow. Is that just because your local is like dying a slow death, or is it?
Yeah, it's kind of dying a very slow death, mostly because about 30 minutes ago, Doxel completely died on me, and I didn't realize when you update Doxel, it removes everything. So I had to restart from scratch, and I think I have like 12 containers running right now.
So in production, Layout Builder is not going to be that slow?
No, on the site I'm usually running, even locally, if I just don't have a ton of stuff running, it's usually about like 100 to 200 milliseconds between like doing stuff. On production, it's even faster because it's all cached and aggregated.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's on our production side. It's pretty snappy. As you drag it, like even the GIFs, like you drag it, boom, it's done. You drag this, and it loads. Like by the way, just a little sluggish.
So Justin, if there's more questions, just feel, but then you could just stop recording and show the live site.
Sure.
Unless
All right.
there's another question.
Yeah, unless there's another question about the generics of Layout Builder, I can show something kind of fancy.
I just had a question about when you're using Layout Builder and you publish a page and there's nothing on the page for that section of the layout, will that still be part of the template, or is that just not filled in?
So that's up to you to do on your template. So if you actually add a section, choose like, hey, the 2 column, and then you don't fill anything out, it'll still render that on the page. Yeah, so usually what I've done in our layout twig templates is I'll just wrap those in an if check. Sometimes I haven't, specifically for like, hey, if you want like an 8 grid, or you got like 4 and a 4, generally I still want those HTML pieces to exist because I want them to just kind of fold to the left. So I'll still render those out, but yeah, the nice thing is it's all like, wherever you want to put those controls, you could hook up. Something I will quickly show is you can actually tie your layouts to a class to control it. So I'm gonna see this. I'll show you where I've defined some of these layouts for this other site where we're actually using this on. So in the layout definition, you could actually assign like, hey, there's this class that controls it. So like I've defined this hero overlap component class. And so this is where you can decide like, hey, what configuration options should be available on that form that pulls in the side drawer. And then you can submit the configuration form, and then you have all of those variables accessible in your template. Is there any more questions on it? Cool. All right, so I'll stop this.